Hey guys, Tiffany Ervin here with another edition of From Passion to Purpose. I can't wait to introduce you to this week's guest because while you may not recognize his name, I guarantee you have heard of the organization that he created more than 25 years ago, Upward Sports. Caz McCaslin is with us today to share with us some really great pieces of information, such as the people who influenced him over the years to help him find his passion and make it his purpose. He also shares some great tidbits about the differences between consequences and circumstances. That's a great one that you'll probably want to write down. So stay tuned. If you like this type of content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Here's my conversation with Caz. So, Caz, thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of From Passion to Purpose. And I can think of no one better to share their story that will inspire others, because you truly have found a passion and made it a purpose that has impacted so many people, not just here at home, but around the world. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I love the title of that.
Thank
Passion
you.
to Purpose. That's what it's all about.
That's exactly right. So most people, to introduce you, I would say probably associate you with Upward Sports because you founded that how many years ago?
It was in 1995. I'll let you do the math. So 26 years ago.
Wow.
But actually prior to that, I was on staff at First Baptist for about 10 years. And that's where it really started, was at that church in First Baptist in Spartanburg. I call it 35. Most people call it 25. But yeah. So it's been really fun.
So let's talk about Upward, because that was, you were a basketball player. You wanted to play professionally, I believe. And
Right.
So sports is a very important part of you. So let's talk first of all about Upward, because I think that's really a big part of who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, it certainly is. The Lord opened some incredible doors there. To your point, thanks for the reminder that I wanted to play professionally. Didn't get to play professionally, but I wanted to play professionally. But I don't know of a fifth or sixth grader out there that loves the sport that doesn't want to play professionally one day. But it's such a small number of people that actually make it to professional sports of any kind, let alone even college sports. I have such a high regard for the professional athlete and how they do what they do so well. Most of us don't have any idea what that takes. But I always wanted to do that. But I was a junior in high school and had a pretty tough injury with a broken kneecap from a pole vaulting accident, which had nothing to do with basketball, which my dad still wonders why I was doing that. But anyway, that really kind of shattered some dreams there, to say the least. I never really came back from that like I wanted to. And I really was kind of lost. You talk about from passion to purpose. I went from passion to no purpose whatsoever. I mean, I was really lost there for a while. But the Lord was extremely faithful to me. And I'll tell you all the background story later. But, I had the joy of being called to be on staff at a church. And because of my passion, I started a basketball league at our church. And it was really exciting. I poured an awful lot into it. My pastor and staff and church were very much behind it. And it just grew to the point that the first year we had like 150 kids. And then year after that, it was 250 and 350 and 450. And we finally got to the point we had 550 kids and 27 kids on a waiting list. And I couldn't wait to get home and tell my wife. I said, "Sweetheart, you're not going to believe this. We got the most happening league in all of Spartanburg, South Carolina." And I said, "We even got 27 kids on the waiting list." I said, "What do you think about that, baby?" And she looked at me and she said, "Well, that's what you wanted to do, is put 27 kids on the waiting list. Then you did good." And I went, "Oh, wow, that's not the response I was looking for." And she said, "We got in this to reach kids, not to turn kids away." It wasn't long after that a pastor by the name of Dr. Johnny Hunt came and spoke at our church. And his message, if I could put it in a sentence, was this: whatever it takes. It was all about doing whatever it takes to reach those that are searching for the truth and just didn't even know it. My wife and I walked out of there literally weeping over those 27 kids. And she asked me a really pivotal question. She didn't say, "It's not your fault." She didn't say, "You're doing the best you can." She didn't say, you can only put so many kids in a gym. What she did, she looked at me and she said, "What are we going to do about it?" And that was really kind of where it all started. It was just really exciting. It was motivational to me. got up the next morning and started looking all over the place for a place to add more kids, to play more. And I looked in the dining hall and the sanctuary. I thought we could take some of these pews out. Nobody sits in the front row anyway, but I was open to anything. Long story short, we ended up renovating our old gym that was the youth center and added another 200 kids to the whole deal. So we're up to 750 kids and about to turn kids away again. Then I was really encouraged and motivated to say, you need to really think about starting this in other churches. So the Lord opened the doors for me to be able to leave the church and to start a not-for-profit called Upward Sports. We started with 7 of my friends in 5 different states. And I just, these are other guys that were ministers of recreation like myself, and they just loved Jesus and loved sports. And they were willing to try it. And the next year, we went to 64 churches, and then it went to 127. And before you knew it, we were in year 8, and we had 1,000 gyms. And by year 10, we had 2,000 gyms, and we were in 47 states. And the Lord was just continuing to bless. And it was just a really, really exciting time. We had an unbelievable journey of people just introducing children to Jesus Christ through something as simple as a ball. It was a really, really fun ride. So we had a great time.
And it was more than just basketball. As you said, it wasn't just a sports recreation league, because those are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere.
Right.
What was that specific thing about Upward that really inspired it to grow?
Well, the first thing is, to your point, being not just basketball, it was basketball and flag football and soccer and cheerleading. And more importantly than that, it was really about all the tools to be able to make this happen. If you've ever talked to anybody that's on a church staff, I mean, they got enough to do without having to worry about all the things that, need to be done to go with making this happen. So one of the things that we developed and designed over time was the way to make it as simple as possible for the end user, meaning the church staff and or the volunteers in the church. And we were a total turnkey package program for everybody that wanted to do that. And then even more importantly was we have all these things, we have all these systems and processes and tools and all that kind of stuff. But the most important thing that needed to happen was we needed to be in front of the leaders in the churches, be in front of the volunteers. There's not a basketball out there or a football out there or a uniform out there that shares Jesus with other people. People share Jesus with people. And so you got to have people. And so it was all about raising up leaders and raising up volunteers to be able to make this happen. So the more we could train, the more that we could get in front of, the more that we could involve and engage with, the more people we had the opportunity and the potential to reach. And so we did everything we could to pour into them and to love on them and to train them up and give them the tools, not just physical tools, but hopefully the spiritual tools and leadership tools to be able to run a league, regardless of the sport, as simply as possible. And so not to leave them with something they could hold in their hands and put in their pockets, but more about the things that were the untangibles. And, Paul tells us in Corinthians, it's not about the things that you can hold in your hands or put in your pockets, but he says, do not focus on the things that are seen, but the things that are unseen, because the things that are seen are temporary, but the things that are unseen are eternal. We used the ball, we used the tools, we used the court or a field to be able to introduce to them the eternal things of who Jesus was and why we did that. So that's there's no doubt this is something that God planned a long time ago, and we're just glad to be a part of it.
And did you have any idea that it would grow as quickly and as large as it did? And then eventually it became international. Is that correct?
Yeah. Actually, we had a stint at international for a while, but what we realized in that journey was there's a lot of other people that do international a lot better than we did. And so what we started doing was providing the tools for our church partners to take to other countries. And so what was happening is the church partners that we had in this country were taking mission trips to other places, and they were taking the tools with them to other countries. So yeah, it started growing even internationally to 7, 8, 9, 10 different countries. There was one year, I think they were in Upward was actually in 12 or 13 different countries at one time. So it was pretty exciting. But to answer your question about did I ever dream that? if the Lord would have told me that on the front end, I think I'd have passed out. So I don't know that I would have ever. There's no way. And I love that passage that says the Lord is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path, meaning He's only going to show me what I can handle at the moment, and He'll show me the rest later. And so. Just a little bit at a time. So he
really
showed me what we could
for
handle.
All of us, isn't it? In everything that we do.
That's right. Yeah. If he ever showed us 10 years down the road, I'm not sure we could take it. So,
Yeah, we're not capable of handling most of that. You are now in a position with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. What is
that's
your
right.
role with that organization?
Yeah. I am the executive director for all leagues and clubs globally. FCA is in 109 countries. There's over 2,500 staff. Extremely exciting opportunity to be able to expand on that. One of the prayers that has always just had a huge impact on my life. My wife and I, this is a side note, but I promise it'll plug in here in a second. But every Christmas, about 10 or 15 years ago, the Lord really laid it on my heart that it was the responsibility of the dad of my three girls. Years ago, before they were ever married, we were about praying a blessing over them every year. And we really wanted to pray this blessing over them in such a way that it would be what we felt like the Lord would have us to honor them and to bless them, and for them to be able to honor and bless God. And so every year we would do that, but always as a part of that prayer, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, I was really engaged with the prayer of Jabez. The prayer of Jabez and that blessing is, Lord, may we, bless us indeed, keep your hand upon us, deliver us from evil, enlarge our territory. When you pray a prayer like that, you ask the Lord to do those things, but it's in his hands as to how he does those things, right? And so the Lord has certainly blessed us indeed with a precious family and provides for our needs, and delivering us from evil and keeping his hand upon us in all things. But when we talked about enlarging our territory, what we wanted more than anything was to be able to use the gifts and talents to be able to share with as many and as often as possible through coaches and athletes. And, at FCA, Shane Williamson is the president there, and I've known him for 30 years. As a matter of fact, when Upward first started and I was on staff at the church, he was at Wofford College, which is just around the corner. And he would come over on Saturdays and ref ball games. And that's where I got to know him. And we've been dear friends for over 30 something years. We kind of chuckle about how it all met. And now he's president of FCA. And there was a time there when I was president of Upward, we were kind of growing up together and learning. And when this opportunity came along, he offered for me to be able to be a part of FCA leagues and clubs, because that's something that they hadn't done in the past. Really, what they've done is a lot of pouring into intentionally, and this hasn't changed by any means. We are all about pouring into coaches and athletes. We want to lead every coach and athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and the church. That really excited me, because it's not just about the coach and the athlete, but it's also about connecting them with the church. And I think that's so vitally important. At a time, we actually talked about one day the possibility of merging, and who knows what the Lord might do with that. But in the meantime, the Lord made it clear that he wanted me to be a part of FCA sports and to grow that globally. And what a phenomenal team at FCA. And it's a big learning curve for me, but I was excited to be a part of that, and looking forward to seeing how that works with partnerships with churches and YMCAs and a lot of different people around the country and around the world. So it's already been pretty exciting.
And so do I understand correctly then that these leagues and clubs would include younger children then, not just say high school and college students that most people usually associate with an FCA?
Yeah, that is exactly right. That's one of the biggest things. About 10 years ago, FCA actually had to change their mission statement, because it used to say that we were all about going about our mission within the borders of the United States. And they wanted to be global. And so they struck that and they went outside the borders of the United States of America. Well, this happened again, just literally today. We literally launched FCA Sports today. I should say we introduced it to our staff today. We'll be launching in February of 2022. But when we shared with them, one of the things that Shane shared with our entire staff is that we're no longer bordered just by junior high, high school, and college campuses, because there's about 7 million athletes that play in the United States on junior high, high school, and colleges. And that's been our main focus, coaches and athletes on those three areas. But off campus, there's about 55 million kids that play sports. And the reason that number is so much larger is, number one, because there's so many more sports that happen off campus. But to your point, there are also so many more that play so much younger. And so we can go all the way down to kindergarten or, elementary school. And this is what really excites me. This is what I get really excited about. There's nothing in the world, if you talk about FCA, you can't talk about it without talking about the E3. And what that is to engage, equip, and empower. And we're all about disciples making disciples. And so just think about what this would be like and what this is going to be looking like in the years to come. But more than anything in the world, what we want to do is be there to introduce Jesus to these young athletes and watch them as they're discipled, and hopefully be there when they ask Jesus to come into their heart, and then begin to disciple them and equip them so that when they leave and go back to their campuses, they're actually empowered to share the love of Jesus Christ with their friends and with those in their circle of influence. And that just excites me to no end, to see how coaches and athletes who have such an incredible platform, right? I mean, they're the ones that are really the leaders in so many areas.
Right. They're so influential.
Absolutely. So anyway, that's a very exciting thing. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to jump on my soapbox there, but that's
no, it's awesome, because it really does show how passionate you are about that opportunity. And it really reminds me that you are such an inspiration to so many people, both personally and professionally, because you are passionate about this and you've found such a great purpose. You don't just have the passion or the purpose, but you know how to make it a reality. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss out. So that makes me curious about you personally, because of the influence that you have on so many people. Who do you look to as a professional or a personal inspiration? Because that must be a really incredible person.
Well, I'll tell you, with one of the most incredible people who that is from the very beginning is my mom. My mom loved Jesus with all her heart. She died about 4 or 5 years ago. She was a prayer warrior, just an incredible, precious woman. And, one of the comments that constantly comes out of her mouth would be, if I ever delivered a problem or concern or a worry, she goes, well, all we got to do is pray about it. I mean, that's really all we got to do is pray about it. And it was just so common, so, so nonchalant to her. And if I ever threw anything like that at her, I could promise you my phone's going to ring every day. Well, has the Lord answered that prayer yet? I mean, has he answered that prayer? Because she was not only a prayer warrior, but she was an impatient prayer warrior. So I just admired that about her in all things. She had a phenomenal, incredible faith that is deep within me, that I've learned from her to trust God in all things. Good, bad, and ugly. And believe me, there's a lot of good, bad, and ugly that comes the longer we live, right? So there's, but it's exciting. But she looked at it all as good, even when my dad got cancer and passed away before her, she said, anything that causes us to pray is good. Wow. Because it brings us before him. But when my mom passed away, obviously my wife is my best friend. She is a precious gift to me. She too is that incredible prayer warrior, and she quotes my mom many times without even know she's quoting her. And it's a joy to watch her faith and watch her pray with and for me. But there's been some pretty incredible men in my life. My first pastor, Dr. Alistair Walker, was the pastor of the church that called me. He was a Scottish brogue, this big, strong Scottish man. And boy, he didn't know the first thing about sports or recreation. and really, he didn't mind that he didn't know. What he did know is that he brought me on to do that. And so he supported me. He prayed for me. He asked me what I needed. He took bullets for me. He laid groundwork for me. He plowed ground that I couldn't plow with his influence, and constantly opened doors for me to be able to do the things that I'd have never been able to do on a staff without the leadership of the pastor. So he was a major mentor in my life. And then when he left, the pastor that followed him is my current pastor, Dr. Don Wilton. He stepped right in those same shoes. He's a phenomenal man. He was the one that was there when I left to start Upward, and was very supportive throughout that, and has continued to be incredibly supportive, now as we continue to move through the ministry of FCA, which has been incredible. And then finally, I could go on through a list. It takes a lot of people to mentor a guy like me, but I got a lot of things that need to be poured into my life. But I mentioned to you Dr. Johnny Hunt, who is a precious man that really helped me set my direction from I would say a ministry direction, a mission for my own personal life, and that whatever it takes mentality that we talked about a moment ago. And it was just a message I know that was directly from God for him. But for over 25 years, the gentleman, or 23 years, I should say, the gentleman that was the chairman of our board, Cole Young, has just been a day-to-day mentor in my life. Incredible guy, and continues to be the friend and mentor and prayer partner that I love, and I'm so thankful for him. Through good, bad, and ugly, he's always been there, and then I do have a weekly prayer partner as well. My dear friend Brett Dillard is we had a prayer time together for 35 years on a
Wow.
Thursday morning. You need anything prayed for, Thursday morning's the time. We'll pray for you on that one right there. So anyway, lots of mentors in my life. I could go on and on, but those few right there mean an awful lot to me on a day-to-day basis, for sure.
Well, you mentioned that good, bad, and ugly. And I'm always curious. So many of us have one defining moment in our life that we say was a real high or a real low. And it's interesting how your life progresses. Those highs and lows continue to change because you never know what's next. Would you say that you have a career or personal high or low that has really defined you?
I would say that if you know that you know that you know, that you're in the middle of God's will, that every day is pretty much a high. I mean, it's exciting. As a matter of fact, for years, even if you had a bad day, I've had some bad days, but if you were to ask me, stranger, hey, how you doing? What's going on? How are you today? And I would say, man, I'm on top of the world. I am on top of the world. And I meant that, and I still do when you say that. But, there are certainly things that come into your life that cause challenges. And, I think that this was probably the greatest realization to me when I was going through the book called The Story. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's just the chronological version of the Bible. And it's basically got 33 of the big events, that happened throughout the Bible. And the Bible is put in chronological order. And I remember being asked to teach that to a group of people at our church. And I thought, man, this would be great. I need it more than anything. And so we had this opportunity. We're teaching through the story, but there was one particular passage as we were talking about, the different times with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel in the lion's den. And even when we get into the part about Job and what Job went through, or Joseph and what he dealt with his brothers and how his brothers betrayed him and threw him in the pit and sold him off. And I mean, man, that Joseph, every time he did something right, he'd get thrown in prison. He'd run away from the temptation of adultery, and he gets lied about and gets thrown into prison. And the bottom line is, what I learned from all of those different stories was this: there's a really big difference between consequences and circumstances. And consequences are things that you always know are coming, because when you do something that's outside of God's will and you know something that you shouldn't be doing, I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how long it's going to take before it happens. I don't know what the ramifications are going to be, but let me just tell you, there are always consequences for things you would do. You cannot think that it's not coming. The crazy thing is that oftentimes we're faced with circumstances like Joseph was, like David was, like Paul was, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These guys went through some very difficult times, not because of what they did, but because of those who have influence over them did. And that's really a challenging place to be, because you never see a circumstance coming. I think the lowest part for me was when I really was hit with a circumstance that kind of knocked me off my feet. And even when that happened, I was in the middle of this passage, about Joseph when all this was going on, and even reading about Jesus. The only person in the Bible that ever knew a circumstance was coming. Only one time is it ever been shown that somebody knew a circumstance, not a consequence, but a circumstance was coming, and that was Jesus. And he knew that he was about to be betrayed, not because of what he did, but because of the lies that they would tell. Even in that one circumstance, Jesus prayed, Lord, if there's any way you can take this cup from me, please take it away. But then he said, not my will, but yours be done. And I think the reason that that's the case is every time a circumstance comes up, that there's going to be incredible ministry opportunity that follows. When even at my lowest, I was like, okay, Lord, what are you going to do with this? What are you going to do with this circumstance in order to use it to your glory and to your honor? And so it was there's been some tough and challenging times, but I think on the other side of that, you get to see what God wants to use it for and how he wants to multiply it. And the crazy thing about circumstances, like with Joseph, you can look at it and you can read 40 years in 40 minutes. But when you're living it, you have to go day by day and minute by minute. It takes a lot longer. And so it's not like you can read to the end and see what happens, So anyway, sometimes it takes a little longer for us to know how the Lord wants to use that circumstance.
I love that. Consequences versus circumstances. I think a lot of people
right.
are going to be doing just what I did, writing that down.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that we have to live through it. We have to learn from those experiences. What advice would you give your younger self? If you could go back and give yourself some advice, what do you think you would tell yourself based on what you know or think we know now?
I think probably the first thing I would do is I loved the Bible study by Richard and Henry Blackaby, The Experiencing God. And, it's really amazing to me that he talks about the 7 things that it takes to go through experiencing God. And one of the very first things he talks about is that God wants an intimate relationship with me. And he wants to use me to help further his purpose. And he invites us to be a part of what he's doing. And I think if I could look at my younger self, I would say be much more intentional about that intimate relationship with Jesus, because you want to have him as close as you possibly can. The interesting thing is I look back at some of my dearest friends and even mentors like Dr. Walker, like you mentioned, asked about before. Some of these men are getting older in age, and Dr. Walker recently has passed on to go to be with the Lord, and my mom passed on to be with the Lord. And one of the things I realized in that, which I think this is a fantastic question here, Tiffany, because it causes us to think, just think about this. The older we get, the more wisdom and knowledge that we have, and the more tools that we have in our tool belt to be able to share the love of Jesus with other people. And yet we have the least amount of time to do it. So we have more and more resources than we've ever had, and we have less and less time to share it than we ever have, which I think is why I see people like my mom or Dr. Walker or some of those folks that love the Lord so much, that were so passionate about sharing Jesus every moment of every day, because they realized how little time that they had. So I think I would say the most important thing would be to be much more intentional about that intimate relationship. And then I'd probably tell myself to immediately invest in Facebook or Apple. Or
That's probably some good advice too.
Yeah.
And being more intimate and intentional is something that we can continue to work on.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's one of the beauties of it. I'm not so sure about investing.
It
might be too late to get in on that.
If I can, I'll tell you one more. I think that it'd be really, really important to, I wish I'd have known this much earlier in life, but I love thinking about and meditating on the difference between faith and fear. My favorite definition of faith is the belief in something you cannot see is going to happen. And you just think about that. The belief in something you cannot see is going to happen. And let me give you my definition of fear. It's the belief in something you cannot see is going to happen. You see, they're exactly the same, but the question is, are you going to listen to the voice of God, which is going to ask you to do something that requires faith, or are you going to listen to the world, which is going to promise you is going to deliver everything in the face of fear? I wish I would have been much more intentional about following the steps of faith instead of fear in the years, my younger years, for sure.
Well, this pandemic has, I think, also taught us to be more intentional about certain things. What have you've been working the entire time, as many people have, and some people have been forced to stay home. I'm guessing it's curtailed your travel a little bit as well. But what else have you done during the pandemic? Have you binge watched or read anything that you had always wanted to read, or done something? Did you learn to garden or sew? What have you been doing during the pandemic?
That's really funny you should bring that up. My father-in-law and mother-in-law had the most incredible gardens, and My favorite thing about a garden is eating what they grew. I mean, I just love fresh vegetables, but I have no desire to do that. And I don't know what happened during the pandemic, but my wife wanted a garden. We fell into the deal. And we had a great time putting up the garden boxes and getting it all out there. We have grandchildren that love to come over, and she planted stuff with the kids and watching it grow and doing all that. It was really, really fun to watch all that happen. I would say, yes, we did some binge watching. I'm kind of some of the old school stuff. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Last Man Standing or, Friends and, The Office and some of those crazy.
I have not watched The Office. That one I
Oh.
haven't gotten into yet. I don't know if it's my kind of humor.
It's just and the funny thing is it's usually better late at night when things are punchy. But
Well, that's exactly
just,
what I've done. I've gone back and watched a lot of older sitcoms, and I'm watching them from start to finish this time. Will and Grace, Friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Some of those older ones that you probably missed a few, but The Nanny, that's my new.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't know. We like some of the shows like we really like the Blue Bloods, those kind of crime stories and those kind of things. Those are really fun.
Now you talked about bringing your grandkids over when you're gardening and doing other things. I know that your family is so important to you. Tell us about those grandchildren again. How many do you have?
Well, so let me tell you this real quickly.
Uh-huh.
When you become a grandparent, whether when you become a grandparent, you get to rename yourself, right?
Yes, that's right.
And either you rename yourself or your kids will name yourself. Something happens there. Everybody comes a new name. So when we first found out our first grandchild was on the way, I asked my wife. I said, "Babe, have you thought about this?" She goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "Oh really?" She said, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what they're calling me." And I said, "Okay." I said, "What's that?" And so just she had obviously thought of it, never told me this until we found out that we were going to be grandparents. But she said, "Yeah, they're going to call me Sugar Mama." And I said, "Well, that's fantastic." I said, "But I got to come up with something quick because if not, I'm going to be Sugar Daddy, and I am not being Sugar Daddy."
Then you're going to be watching Designing Women.
I'm not being Sugar Daddy. So
wow.
I am a big Bulldog fan. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yes, I was going to mention that. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't throw that out at you, Rob. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can see the grandkids behind me there.
Yes.
But I'm a big Bulldog fan, and so my kids call me Big Dog. So it's a Big Dog and Shug. Big Dog and Shug.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I do have 3 precious daughters and 3 incredible son-in-laws, and 4 beautiful little girls and 3 little boys.
Oh, wow. Big family. So I know you love spending time with them. You mentioned Georgia. You're a huge Georgia fan. What else do you like to do for fun? If you have a free afternoon or a free day or a free weekend, which I know you rarely have, but how would you like to spend that time?
Somebody's going to think this is a made up answer, but I got to tell you, I'm just going to tell you the absolute truth. Okay.
Okay.
My wife I'm so glad she's not sitting here beside me because she would set this straight so fast. I'm a minister of recreation at heart. Okay. Sports and recreation. Well, that's everything from 2 years old to 102 years old. And really for me, my greatest joy is to be with my friends. If I have time to do something, I'm thinking about not what I'm going to do. It's more about who can I be with to go hang out that I haven't been with before. And so the problem with that is that in order to hang out with different friends, you got to be able to do different stuff. And so if you go into my garage, I got golf clubs, I got hunting gear, I've got racquetball stuff, I got a bicycle to go ride, I've got, pickleball equipment. Even if I got a couple buddies that we just love to go to the movies, we're just going to go hang out at the movies. I just enjoy being with people. And we could have people over here and eat pizza and prop up in the basement and watch a movie, and I'd be happy as a lark. I just love being with friends. It's my favorite.
Happy as a lark. I love that phrase. That's pretty Southern.
Yeah, it's a Southern phrase.
Yeah. You grew up in the South, right?
I did.
Yeah, me too. And in fact, a lot of people know that about me. Not that they can tell it the way I speak or anything. But so what is your happy as a lark, happy as a clam? Those are great ones. What's your favorite Southern phrase?
Oh, this one is so easy because being with FCA and even back in the day with Upward, you travel all over the country. So you go to different parts of the country and there's things that you catch yourself saying that other people don't really know that you're saying it. One of the funniest things that came out is when you say, "How y'all doing? How y'all doing?" Well, y'all is just one person. I'm
That's
talking
right.
to you. I just want to know how y'all doing. Are y'all doing all right today? Well, it's just you. But if there's a multiple of people, then it's all y'all. So how all y'all doing? So it's how y'all doing and how all y'all doing.
That's right.
I think that's classic.
That's
y'all
classic.
and all y'all is my favorite Southern saying.
Absolutely. I love that. Yes, I travel with Rotary quite a bit. And
Yeah.
when they figure out what I'm saying, then they try to figure out what I mean.
Yeah, there you go. That's completely different. What you mean and what you're
Absolutely.
saying are completely different. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So how are y'all doing? Y'all doing
Y'all doing all right? Yeah. And then I have a friend that says Ewans, and that's
Oh.
a classic one as well. You don't hear
Yeah,
that
that one
one
goes-
outside of the South at all.
That's deep. That's really deep.
That's really deep.
That's right.
So one of the things that people know about me is I love motivational quotes, and I love to be inspired. I love reading them. I love thinking about them and just contemplating them. Do you have a favorite verse or motivational quote that you maybe is yours, that you live by, or that you share with people if they're in a tough spot, that your go-to quote, your go-to verse?
Yeah, well, I have one of each. So a go-to
Right.
quote and a go-to verse. The verse is always more important than the quote. So I'll tell you my life verse. It's Galatians 2:20. And it says, I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life which I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God that gave his life for me, who loved me and gave his life for me. And I get two things from that verse that are powerful to me. Rick Warren wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life. And one of in the very first chapter, the very first sentence, the very first thing that he says, you can stop reading right there if you want to, but it says in the very first sentence, it's not about you anymore. And that was a powerful first line. It's not about you anymore. And the reality of it is when I look at that verse, I realize when it says, I have been crucified with Christ, everything about that first sentence, I've been crucified with Christ, is the fact that it's all about me. See, before we know Jesus, it's all about me. Everything a church does, everything a ministry does, everything Upward ever did, everything that FCA is now doing, everything along those lines, it's all about sharing Christ with those that are searching for the truth and they don't even know it. And then the second part of that verse says, I've been crucified with Christ, comma, it is no longer I who live, but it's Christ who lives in me. And so that life which I now live, I live by faith. And the whole point of that is that everything I do should be under the righteousness of Jesus who died for me and poured his life into me. And so I'm only here on this earth to allow Jesus to live through me and to do whatever it is. So if anything at all that you see or do that you think, man, that was a good thing, that wasn't me. I've been crucified with Christ. It's Christ in me that made that happen. My favorite one-liner is one that I've shared for many years. It's just something I've always shared. And it's this, Jesus Christ understood the concept that if you want something you've never had, you're going to have to do something you've never done before. And we all know the saying, you can't keep doing the same thing expecting, different results. But if you want something you've never had, you're going to have to do something you've never done before. We're constantly moving into things that we've never done before to be able to accomplish things that we never thought possible. But the beauty of that is that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So we're always looking for ever-changing ways to share an ever-changing message. That's my favorite thing.
Well, and you are certainly doing that and showing us that by doing new things will happen, and sharing your passion and your purpose. And it's just incredible. If people aren't excited and motivated and ready to go conquer the world after listening to you, then there's something wrong with them, because I am inspired. I know I am. And it just makes you want to be a better person when you're around people like you. And I really am grateful for you sharing your message, as I'm trying to share the message of people who are a lot smarter, done a lot more things than I have. And I think that's my purpose, is to introduce people to people like you, so that they can become inspired and motivated and ready to conquer the world as well. If people want more information about FCA and this new clubs and leagues that is getting ready to form, how do they find that? How do we get them in touch with you?
Yeah, the best thing to do is just go to our website, fca.org, and that's the way to find out. And as these things are continuing to be unfolded, and I would really encourage you, if you're listening to this, and who knows where in the country or around the world you might be, but look for your local FCA guy. There's so much that's happening with FCA at the local levels, and those local people, the local field, they're the ones that are making all this happen. So thankful and excited to be a part of this executive team. But the most exciting work and intentionality is happening with that FCA staff, every one of them are so passionate about sharing the love of Jesus through coaches and athletes. And so I would really encourage them to get local with their FCA guys, and check us out on our website at fca.org and watch as FCA sports begins to unfold. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's exciting to think about how that's going to unfold in the next year. And I'm sure that FCA is on all of the other social media accounts as well. So we will put all of those links down below and on this video so folks can find you guys. Caz, thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending some time with us today and sharing your passion and your purpose, which you so beautifully and eloquently exhibit both in your walk and in your talk. And I'm very grateful for that.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. I love what you're doing, and I love the title, man. Let's if everybody could take their passion to a purpose, the world would be a different place. So Absolutely. You're awesome. Thank you for what you're doing.